Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, a show that examines all aspects of sexuality, from physical to emotional to spiritual. Join our hosts as they discuss age-old questions, common misconceptions, and the latest topics surrounding sex. They'll tackle topics about sexuality from the complicated to the hilarious and everything in between. GSMC Sex Podcast is your show for all of your questions about sex, even some you might not have thought of yet.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Andra, where the topic about sex is from the point of view of an older woman. Hello out there, and I hope you are enjoying the weather on the East Coast and the weather on the West Coast and all the weather in between. It's been a little crazy. And also, hope everybody is staying safe, social distancing due to the recent rise in COVID and hospitals being full, which I hope you don't have to really go to the hospital for something else, because heaven only knows what's going to happen. So I hope you are all being safe, taking care of yourself, making sure you're healthy, because that's what it's all about. Now, the majority of, almost everybody loves oral sex. Hey, that's just part of it. And some people believe that, this is how they are going to please their partner, get them to that orgasm, and everything that comes along with it. Now, but did you know that when you give a blowjob and your partner comes in your mouth, that there are benefits of semen, his ejaculation, if you actually swallow it. Now, I'm sure everybody has heard the saying, come get your protein injection. And that is referring to a blowjob and your partner ejaculating into your mouth and you swallowing. But, a lot of people don't like that. Well, there's a lot of things that go along with that are not likable. Like when the man holds your head there, or shoves it so far down your throat you can't breathe. And you're gagging wicked, wicked bad. Yeah, those are the things that, you don't like. But there are benefits to it. Obviously, oral sex, and when it's done, is the way of showing your partner, one, that you love every part of his body, and that you are there to pleasure them, and it's almost like a focused pleasure, and that is seen as one of the primary fundamental benefits to the oral sex. And you can, if you're both into it and you really love it, that's probably one of the first things that you do. But there are extra health benefits to it. So, that's what our topic is, at least in the first segment, and maybe the second segment. And then we will go on to, some sex positions you should try before you die. But let's see what happens with the benefits of, this might give you a different view on it. I doubt that the way that you will get that protein injection is the way you want it, but there are a lot of people out there that have no problem with swallowing after pleasuring your mate orally. Your mate with a penis, mind you, to be particular. Because I don't think I've found any benefits that have come from women's orgasm, aside from the fact that men just love to see it and watch it. So, or your partner in general. So, let's get into the benefits of, or the potential health benefits of semen, besides the fact that it is packed with protein. Those health boosts go so much farther than that, and it's pretty interesting. So, semen, believe it or not, is a natural antidepressant. Now, we all know that having sex makes us happy. It relieves a lot of tension in us. Gives us a good gooey feeling. Before and after. However, there was a study, believe it or not, all these benefits have been proven through research and studies. So one study actually conducted on 293 female college students. And this was all State University of New York in Albany. They were exposed to semen, and it was actually documented and observed and documented, wrong, trial of events, but observed. It is early, people. Observed and documented that when they were exposed to semen, obviously drinking whatever way they took it, it lowered their symptoms. There was a significant lowering in the symptoms of depression, believe it or not. Now, this study compared female students who were having sex with condoms versus those who were having sex without it, and found that the later group overall showed fewer signs of depression. So this is through normal sex, not only oral sex, but through normal sex. And if your partner comes inside of you. So it has a benefit. Now, this particular study and the, when they're figuring all the facts and the statistics with the data, it was consistent. All this data was consistent with the possibility that semen may antagonize depressive symptoms. And it's funny because it goes on where the evidence shows that the vagina absorbs a number of components of the semen that can be detected in the bloodstream, believe it or not, within a few hours of ejaculation, or in this case, administration. I'm sure they didn't have sex right then and there. But our bodies as women absorb up semen quickly. Doesn't matter how it comes in, we absorb it. However, vagina is the most direct way, to some extent, aside from oral sex, and it going straight down and into the gullet. So, this doesn't, obviously, even though this is, this study says this, and it's an antidepressant, please just don't go out there and find some Joe or Sally on the street just to have unprotected sex. That would not be a wise choice. Now, we all know that after having sex, what happens? Generally, your partner falls asleep. And if it was men, they just roll over, poof, go to sleep. It wears them out worse than it wears us out. But it has been found that it does, semen helps you to sleep better. You had an exercise session, so you're worn out. However, aside from protein being in semen actually contains melatonin, which is a chemical that induces sleep and relaxation. It actually is prescribed to a lot of people. You can just go into a store and get it. It's in the vitamin aisle. And if you're having difficulty sleeping, a doctor will generally going to tell you to get melatonin first and start using it. And seeing how that helps you to sleep better. Or, if it helps to produce you, to go to sleep. However, doesn't matter which way you're getting the semen in, whether you ingest it through oral sex or through the vagina, it does help you to better fall asleep. I'm pretty sure we already knew that. Now, the next benefit, it is, whereas, you got to think about it as a semen, as a multivitamin each time that your partner ejaculates. A little bit of statistics here. 1 teaspoon of semen contains over 200 proteins and several helpful vitamins and minerals, including vitamin C, calcium, chlorine, citric acid, fructose, lactate acid, magnesium, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sodium, vitamin B12, and zinc. Now you got to look at it this way. All these things are in our body. All these vitamins, we all require it. If we're low, we get a prescription for, or a vitamin. Just go into the store and get vitamins to boost it up. Boost up whatever vitamin is low in us, or whatever is low in us. So we take that just to boost it. However, semen, it's either female or male, but we are talking about the male counterpart in their semen. When he ejaculates, it's part of his body. His body has to produce that. So obviously, his body is giving off these minerals and things that are already in his body. So, and this is how it's comprised of, because if you break it down and you go into the science of it, and you go into the laboratory and you analyze it under a microscope, obviously it's going to be made of something. It's a body fluid. So all of these proteins, all these vitamins are in 1 teaspoon of semen. So if your partner comes inside of you, you're getting all those proteins. And on top of that one, if you're trying to have a baby, always, and this is true of women as in men. Men give you sperm. Okay? In that sperm, that's a little genetic tadpole in there. It's bringing part of him into you, while you, as a female, are taking your egg, which is part of you, and has your little genetic things going crazy in there, and putting them together. And this is how you get a piece of each of you. So if you break down the semen, when you're swallowing it, and I know this is another, what is it called? Health remedy. However, I'm still trying to figure out how this works, but still, where some people, if you drink your urine, it's supposed to have health benefits as well. Granted, those who drink it, or we've heard of, because this method has been out there. I just haven't seen or heard of any place doing it. But the only places we've heard of people eating their own urine and feces is if it's a survival. But because we are not going to sit there and take a cup of our urine and just drink it. Now, would you just, and there are probably people out there that do. Same thing with semen. There's probably people out there that might just take it and, put it in a shake, make it easier to go down. Who's to say? It could be their regimen in the morning. Obviously, all the vitamins that are in there, in the semen, vary in the amount because of the age and health, relative health of the individual. And you got to look at it. Obviously, if it's a younger person, there's probably more because their bodies are still growing and still getting there in a teenager. With a full-grown male, and they've stopped growing and their bodies are changing as their age changes. Well, obviously they lose off on some things in vitamins. So it is depending on age. You might have vitamins that you will get. It's funny because there's a movie, old movie with Jim Carrey called Once Bitten. And it's the female vampire who needs a male to be a young virgin male to bite and right by his groin in order to continue her youthfulness as a vampire to keep her alive. So it is kind of, it's kind of sort of one of those, what she's doing type deals. She's not giving him oral sex, but she's biting him so close to the groin that she's sucking in his youthful semen. Of course, they don't get up and say that, but that's what it is. In semen, there's usually a significant amount of zinc present. And it's usually by US RDA standards, 3%. And this zinc is an antioxidant, and it helps slow down the aging process. So, besides all that exercises that you've just gone through, that comes from sex, you are getting in your dose of vitamins. Think about how you take it in this time, though. We are absorbing it if it does go through our vagina as women, because we are like sponges there. So, now, just like sex, we're going to take a break. Our first break of this show. And we'll come back to just as sex. And we will pick up on those lovely benefits. So, get a drink, get a snack, get relaxed, come back, and I'll meet you back here for more sex talk with Andra.
Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Andra, with the topic about sex is from the point of view of an older woman. Now, we have been on the topic of the health benefits to semen, which you can either swallow it through oral sex, which you're going to be pleasuring your partner anyway, or through the vagina and he ejaculates inside of you. Granted, you probably tell them pull out beforehand, but if you've been with your partner long enough, that does not happen, and a condom is not needed, but you are getting your vitamin injection either way. Now, when we left off on this subject, I left off with 2 words, oral sex. And we know that oral sex can lower your blood pressure. So, with that, we will continue. Let's finish with oral sex can lower your blood pressure. Not like you didn't know that. But yes, it can. Obviously, that there is a study that was done in 2003, and it's also published in the American Journal of Obstetrics, OBGYN. How's that one sound? In gynecology. And they found swallowing semen on a regular basis can lower your blood pressure. Women who swallow their mate's sperm during oral sex often have a much lower risk of getting preeclampsia. And this is, for those who do not know, a complication during pregnancy that results in super high blood pressure. So, obviously, the semen helps to make the baby. And it's also helpful in birthing that same baby after. So if you're a bit afraid of having sex with your mate while she is extremely pregnant and in the 9th month, because you feel you're going to hurt the baby, which you won't, but it may also be uncomfortable for her, turn that around and give that protein injection through oral sex. Semen lowers the risk of prostate cancer when expelled. This particular one here is not considered so much of a health benefit of the semen, but rather how it's being ejaculated. It's the act of the semen. As it's, when it's released. And because obviously if a man doesn't have sex for a while, what do we call it? Blue balls. And we cannot have that because this is an actual process in our body, women and men, to release yourself. Because it has adverse effects in every other part. So you got to look at it that way. And there was a study that was conducted in 2004. A little bit old on the studies. I'm sure they're still there, but a little old. This one was in the Journal of the American Medical Association. And it stated, quote, high ejaculation frequency was related to decreased risk of total prostate cancer, unquote. Whether you do it alone or with a partner, the fact that you are ejaculating regularly, men, you are at that lower chance for getting prostate later in life. We all call it release your demons. Well, your ejaculation is releasing your demons per se and making you feel much better. Now, it's funny because the next benefit is like it could be the next all-natural fire extinguisher. Now, I know that most of you, when it comes to semen and ejaculating and coming, whatever term you're going to use, it is for your pleasure and your partner's pleasure. If you do it alone, there you go. You're pleasuring yourself. If you're doing it with a partner, you're pleasuring both. But did you know that DNA in semen could be used to create flame retardant materials? They are actually looking into it. There was a study that was done in 2013, which isn't that long ago, 7 years. They probably have come up with something now. They are looking at what specifically, what DNA from herring, Herring, sperm cells. And they find that these sperm cells actually converts to a ceramic-like material when exposed to heat. So not only is your sperm good in and out of your partner's body, and the releasing of it from your body is very, very health beneficial, it can help everybody else and protect us from fires. So next time there's a small fire, kitchen fire, and you're horny, extinguish it, and you've got a fire extinguisher close by, extinguish it, ejaculate all over it, see what happens. Who's to say? I'm assured me saying that, some of you are probably going to try that now. It's the science behind the fire extinguisher is it's really an intense process, but the components that are found in DNA, it could be found as a environmentally friendly way to protect your fabric from flame or anything else. They say, they tell you, I'm not telling you to go do it, but as they don't suggest that you go out there and actually put out a fire with your sperm, your semen, or ejaculating all over it, shall I say, because heaven only knows what will actually happen with all the other components that are involved with it. But it has been researched that component in male semen can put out fires. And they are actually studying this now. This is not an old study, 2013. So I would presume if I went back and researched this a little bit more, I could probably find out that they have found a way to do it. Not on the market yet, but they have found a way to do it. It is our bodies are wonderful things, and using them and actually looking at what it can do differently. To us, it's like, okay, sex, oh my God, penis in, penis out, thrusting, penetration, how deep can I go? Let's get deeper, let's try this position, this is all these things that are going through with you in your head. Is just, whoa, I'm getting sex. And that's pretty much probably where a lot of people just halt, because sex is equated with pleasure. But you didn't realize that it had all these benefits to it. These are the things you don't find out. And you could have your protein injection during oral sex, but it'll be much more received if you're not shoving your penis down your mate's mouth or throat, shall I say. If they like it and they do it, more power to you. Continue up with the good work. However, choking somebody just to get you off is not a very good thing to do. And for the most part, will turn your partner off to them. So I'm just letting you know that. Be a little bit, let them take the reins on that. Let them pleasure you orally. Okay, either way, we're going to get that protein injection in there, guys. Now, moving right along, we are talking about semen and ejaculating and coming and all this layman, all these things you want to call it. And simple as pie, it is an orgasm, basically the ultimate goal of sex, or masturbation in that point. But there are some orgasms that you probably didn't even know you could have. There are so many ways, and there are different ways that they come on and feel in people, especially through different sensations and all of that, different durations of it. People can, hold that longer than some. And there are those people who don't even really care about it. A lot of orgasms out there. And usually when it comes to orgasms, granted we do look at the men, but what is the ultimate pleasure for a man is to stimulate their female counterpart by stimulating their vagina, their clitoris, all of that, and getting them to orgasm, because they literally get off on that. So there are, a lot of people say then there are a lot of types of orgasms, and if you don't have them, or if you're less capable to have them, they say that you feel less of a woman, or the fact that you might not feel like you're being pleasured all the way. But the whole idea is, don't put pressure on yourself, because you don't know. I mean, the way you find out is through having sex, through masturbating, and doing all of this, in finding those different little pressure points in your body. And really, when it comes to sex, the focal point is sexual pleasure. It's that pleasure that comes from it. And it doesn't matter how you're going to do it. It doesn't matter how you achieve that orgasm, just that you do. And it's really funny, because we always think that it is not the responsibility extreme, but if we are going out and we're talking, and then we're talking about the sex we had and how, oh, he got me off this way, oh, she got me off this way, it's really not their responsibility, your partner. It's your responsibility to get yourself off, because you know what makes you feel good and will get you to that orgasm. Now, with that being said, we are going to talk about some different kinds of orgasms, which a lot of them you probably know about, and maybe some that you don't or don't. Obviously, anal orgasm. Obviously, very taboo to have anal sex, but nowadays a little bit much more accepted, shall I say, and being done much more frequent than ever. Now, when conducting anal sex on a woman, it has been found that women can achieve an orgasm somewhat faster by this, because it's higher this way for a woman to achieve that orgasm. And then going back with oral sex or intercourse. But the anal sex, it's obviously, we all focus on the clitoris, and believe it or not, that way of stimulation is actually highly debatable. But on that note, we are going to take a break here. And when we come back, we are going to continue with the anal orgasms and go on to talk about other orgasms that can be achieved either with a partner or not, but obviously much funner with a partner. So, completely up to you if you want to get and replenish your drink, replenish your snack, and then come back, get relaxed. But if you're already relaxed and you filled up the first time round, please sit there. Don't stop what you're doing on the account of me going to break. Because with all that, I will meet you back here for more Sex Talk with Andra.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Andra, where the topic about sex is from the point of view of an older woman. Now, when we left off in the last segment, we were starting our discussion on the anal orgasm. Now, when we are trying to bring our partners to that full-fledged, ongoing thrill of excitement of the orgasm. I am pointing at women here. Partners are so focused on tickling the clitoris and having such intense stimulation of it, so that when you do have that orgasm, it is off the charts. You know, scientists don't even really know the anatomy, the full, thorough anatomy of the clitoris, but they know that all orgasms, doesn't matter how they come on or how you feel them, are stimulated through the clitoris. Now, hitting that clitoris and getting it there, because clitoris is our friend, it is our central point of female pleasure, and trying to find different ways to hit it, inside the vagina, outside the vagina, around the corner, up the street, all well and good. But believe it or not, that doesn't always work for every woman. And anal sex actually is a way to hit the backside of that clitoris. Because remember, the anal canal has all of these lovely nerve endings, and that go all the way up to the vagina. Even on men, that go right up to the scrotum, right, that little spot of perineum nerves. And this is why we as women, or women in general, are able to just sit down and get turned on by that. And a lot of people do get turned on by being in exercising, and that old fable, sitting on top of the washing machine in the spin cycle. So, the anal canal and the vaginal wall they share this really thin layer together. And hitting that is where we're referring to the lovely G-spot. Now, through anal, it can be reached like indirectly through the anus. So, because you're getting it on a different angle, you're getting a different sensation, and you're setting off that clitoris. So, like if you are doing anal sex, come on, partners, play around with her clitoris. At the same time. Doesn't matter if it's same sex, because there are strap-ons. So, ladies know this. So this is a way of reaching the spot, per se. It is actually the area around the urethral sponge and canal, believe it or not. It connects really to the back of the clitoris. So, it is, so they basically equate this particular orgasm as the G-spot orgasm, or the clitoral based orgasm. So anal sex will get you there. Now, there are tons of nerve fibers in the clitoris, and we all know that, because we wouldn't be, our partners wouldn't be trying that hard. Although even alone and you're masturbating, ladies, you wouldn't be so focused in on stimulation of the clitoris, because, like, as that focal point. But that is the focal point. But there are other ways to go about it, and anal is one of those. So don't forget that, because later on, I'm going to end out the show with, having anal sex with somebody, how to enjoy it really, with somebody who actually loves it. Okay, so this way you can actually take that lovely anal sex and work it along, because that's what it's there for. We're moving forward. We're trying to go from one to the other, to the other, to the other. And getting there is half of the battle. So remember all of that and how we get there. Now we're going to move on to the next type of orgasm, which is always good. And enjoyable because we want a variety. So that was the anal. We're moving on to the dun, 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 dun. Now we all know that, or at least the majority of the population knows that anal sex is becoming much more of a thing now, and having an orgasm that way is pretty energetic for you. So that brings us to our next one, which is the energy orgasm. And as it says, it's energy. You're using energy to get to that orgasm, and it could be a powerful erotic experience. What happens during an energy orgasm is considered unique. It releases accumulated tension in both body, mind, and also sometimes connects to the spirit of the person. Because remember, when we're talking about energy and honing in on it, we're talking about core energy. So this is one of those things, and this is actually taught in Tantra workshops, and where it covers like the conscious sexualities. Now, it's explained as an energy orgasm is the kind of orgasm we experience when we suddenly release stored up tension and energy. So basically, if you have been, it's like a volcano that just erupted in your body. It's a build-up. And once it's there, you release it so quickly with so much energy. And then you go down into the cool down. So then this way, you could start all over again, and the next one would be longer. But you feel so much relief. The tension and everything that you were feeling is all released and drained out of your arms, your feet, your legs, your fingers, all parts of the body. And believe it or not, you may feel some tingling sensation when this occurs. So, build up is good. Sometimes building up all that little bit of tension inside of you actually works. We generally always just assume that having an orgasm is going to be during sex, that your partner is going to get you off. But with the energy orgasm, it's not limited to just sex or any physical stimulation. It is in response to energy flowing out and all to every limits of your body, and even going well beyond that in order to feel that. When you feel this energy orgasm, you really are in another world. You experience things you haven't felt before, experienced before. It is everywhere in your feet, your legs. It's amazing. You feel it all over your body, and you can get up and actually say, I felt that all the way into my toes. Oh my God, that went into my kneecaps. It was all over. I felt that in my head, and I'm coming down. Now, when it goes into your legs, obviously, there is our lovely little friend, the clitoris. And if you could probably time it correctly with the energy, you could probably, stimulate that clitoris manually to get it to be even more intense and longer. So, and this is how you have it in combination to friction sex. So friction sex is obviously when you're rubbing up against something, your clitoris, especially for females, up against your partner's leg, or up against a sex toy or something. It's giving you that friction, which is going to give you more energy to expel through that orgasm. So, release it any way and as long as you can, you want. Do it. The next one, actually, after all of that energy is released, you may just become emotional, because there is an emotional orgasm. They aren't with emotional, just like with energy, they are not always associated with just having sexual intercourse. They call them emotion-gasms. And they actually work in the same way energy does. It's a lot of build-up, so that when it is released and just drains your body of all the tension that you have. A combination of breath, movement, sound, and muscular contractions, and then comes the release of the orgasm. So, it may not have to deal with the erotic part of it, but they are total experience. It allows your body, to express these emotions without trying to stifle them, as it is explained. They kind of compare it to, have you ever had it when you got into a heated laughing fit and all of a sudden you feel like you can't stop and you feel like you're going to die laughing, hence the pun. This is where your diaphragm is spasmed and you can barely get a breath in, Then finally, all of a sudden, it comes down and you get that big breath of air to come in and you are able to stop laughing. There are crygasms, and as it says, crygasms. When you're crying, it describes that feeling of release and relief after a really good cry. When the doctor says best medicine is, why don't you go home and have a good cry? Because crying actually helps your stress levels and releases them, brings them down. So what do you think a cry or an angergasm is going to do for you? It's going to let you get rid of all of this physiological ingredients of that emotion-gasm, and it is viewed as the same as a genital orgasm. There's not one emotion that is associated with it. It's basically whatever emotion is troubling you, that's where that release will come from. And you're going to really concentrate and be centered or be really centered on non-sexual feelings or anything that has to do with eroticism or anything. Now, we have talked about the nipple orgasm in the past. Ladies, men also can have them. And because the nipple is that lovely, well-known erogenous zone, and for the most part, that's where your partner will go first, aside from their hands sliding into your pants. But it is intentional stimulation. And you reach that orgasm through that. With it, if you're having a partner do it, there's a lot of trust involved, patience, empathy. But if you're doing it yourself, you know how hard, how low, what this, what that to do. So it is a very intense orgasm. Really, if you you should really try that, a nipple orgasm alone first, then come out and this way you also show where your partner, new places that your partner could touch or how to touch your nipples. But on that note, we are on the last break in the show. So when we come back, we will finish out our lovely orgasms and finish out the show with a little bit of some ways of enjoying anal sex with someone who actually loves doing it. It's not an easy thing for everybody because, if we're imagining being on the toilet or something, that's a much tighter hole. And so completely up to you. If you want to get something more to drink or eat, do it. If not, if you're comfortable and you are coming to the peak of your orgasm, sit still and just finish it out. Because we are all here and along for the ride. So I will meet you back here for more sex talk with Andra.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Andra, where the topic about sex is from the point of view of an older woman. Now, we were working on our orgasms and the different kinds that we can have, and, some we've talked about, some are new. And moving right along, we are on the zone orgasm. Now, with the zone orgasm, everybody, when it comes to orgasms overall, believes complete genital stimulation is necessary to have an orgasm. That isn't necessary for everybody to achieve an orgasm. Okay? So, the zone orgasm is actually specifically for that, a non-genital orgasm. And it is described as an orgasm that occurs when a sensitive spot or zone on the body, it can be anywhere, of a person not usually used for erotic stimulation is stimulated to its peak. So it could be one day, your mate, your partner, or somebody new that you've just met touches you in a particular way that sends the sensation throughout your body and perks up that genital area to a point where it's just like no control. Zone orgasms, we have them all over the place. And when we think of zones, the first place we think of is the ears. Some other places, the neck, the nape of the neck, the back, and things like that. The zones, your breasts. These are, avoiding the genitals. Some people are very turned on if you play with their feet, the back of their knees. These are zones. There are so many of them. And, granted, we have some that are a little weird, like the underarms. But there are the hips, the thighs, like I said, the feet, which encompasses the toes, maybe the fingers. Someone could be sucking on your finger. Granted, you've had it done before, but this person is doing something different or gives you another sensation while doing it. Maybe she doesn't pick he or she doesn't pick that first finger to go to. They go to the pinky finger, which has never been sucked before on you, and it sends something off. You know, you could, and there's been times, I mean, kissing is such a big thing with everything. When you meet somebody, what's the first thing you probably ask them for the first time? Are you a good kisser? You want to know if they're a good kisser, so you lean in and just lay one on them when they're not expected, to see if you're actually, if they respond to you, because you might want to make sure that they do and don't smack you in the face. But to also know if, one, they're responsive, and if they kiss or to your standards of what you like. And you got to remember, though, that goes both ways. Because you may like the way that person kisses, but they may not like the way you kiss. Or vice versa. They may like the way you kiss, but you don't like the way they kiss. Hey, if you really, really like them and you don't mind, try again and, you know, get it to the point where you're used to each other's kisses and how they are. But it has, you know, mainly women, because women judge that way sometimes, can have an orgasm just by kissing alone. Because it is such that turn on. It gets all your juices rumbling in there and everything. So remember that. There are different ways to do that in those different zones. Why don't you, like, the next time you're going to go have sex, and you know what her zone is, or you know what his zone is, focus only in on that zone. Even if you're sitting there and you're watching a movie, you're watching a movie and you're just slightly playing with each other's fingers or whatever the case may be, but your partner is getting turned on. Continue it. Don't stop. And you've just hit a zone. There are also, you know, women also can have it probably more than men do, which I find really hard. But psychic orgasms, which is an orgasm that occurs during dreaming. Obviously, men do get them. They're called wet dreams, dear. Now we're going to go on to our next orgasm, which is the coregasm, as they call it. Obviously, we do a lot of stuff to get our heart pumping, our blood rushing, muscles contracting, breathing hot and heavy. Well, if you do that and just exercise alone, that is an orgasm. Yeah, because that's what it is. It sounds exactly like you're having that orgasm. You probably don't even put that one and one together, because your whole idea is, oh, I'm at the gym working out, and you're focusing on those biceps, or you're focusing on your leg muscles, your calf muscles, all your hamstrings, your abdominal, all of these things. You need to, finally stop and say, oh, wait a second. This feels like an orgasm. Think of it that way. Now, obviously, doing exercises, they can bring on the orgasms. But when doing that, and if you do have an orgasm from exercising, they actually refer to them as these coregasms. So what do you do when you exercise? You're concentrating on the core muscles to build and strengthen them. So if you're thinking about it and you're swapping it over and you're thinking of an orgasm, obviously it's a coregasm because you're focusing in on that. It's what induces it. So there is your coregasm. And the last orgasm I'm going to talk about, because we are going to go and touch base on enjoying anal sex with somebody who loves it. I know it's kind of hard. You want to please them, but also it might not be your thing to do, because remember, anal sex takes a little bit, getting used to. and you might not like it. A lot of people don't like it. You just, even the fact that it is taboo. You're not supposed to do those kind of things. But it does happen. So, we are going to talk about those. And there are like a few tips for you to enjoy that anal sex. Obviously, always, before going from big and straight to it, work up to it. Educate yourself on it. Communicate it with your partner and get consent from your partner. But also, start out slow. Because if you want this person to really enjoy this and be with you and enjoy it because it's something that you enjoy, one of your partners enjoys, then you need to take the time as well. Because they're not going to talk to you. They're going to tell you no. Anal sex is being done a lot more these days, and it seems to be more widely done. Because, it used to be, and still to some extent, taboo. And a lot of people trying, because we're talking about these orgasms that you can get from, and it is with men, it's prostate massage. They put it nicely said. It's basically your partner going through your anus at the same time jerking you off. So, or giving you a blowjob, one or the other. Women, a little different. We have a couple of holes. They can be occupied. These are ways in which you look at it. It is, some people find it as a precursor to vaginal penetration, as well as a little bit of below the belt play, because you don't have to, your partner probably plays around with your anus with their finger. So remember, when you are going to be doing that, lubrication is your friend. Okay, so make sure that, you need to be fully relaxed. You have to have lube big time. And remember, there are all kinds of lovely lubes out there that do, alleged to do a lot of different things and sensations. So remember that when you, or if you even, agree to have it. You might find other ways to have that anal sex per se, or whereas your partner who enjoys it very much so, there might be another form of doing it where it also is as much as enjoyable as actually doing it. So there are ways to that. And now when there are some things you need to know, like I talked just briefly ago, obviously the consent to this has to be a hell yes, I want it. You cannot just say, oh geez, I'll try it. Because they're still on the fence, and you might get to that point where you're in the middle of sex and you go to try it, and they're like, whoa, back off. No. So remember that. You gotta have it where this person is very much relaxed with wanting to try it. You really need to have a solid level of trust between you and your partner. Sex alone, either vaginal or same sex, you have to have that level of trust with your partner. Because there are points where, you become uncomfortable that, there's vaginal pain or dryness as a woman ages, or the man has difficulty with an erection. So you really, really educate yourself. If you accidentally, quote unquote, slip it in, you're a jerk, in, no pun intended, an a-hole. Okay, that violates consent and communication. It is not okay. That is very, very, this can be very painful for somebody, worse than even having vaginal pain or dryness or having a disorder. You are going into an area which is clenched constantly. Those are some taut muscles back there. And I understand you men like that tightness, that firm grip. But you need to remember that this is either a woman, if it is same sex and it's a homosexuality, with a man on a man. And I don't say that with any discriminative underlining at all. I think that is absolutely great that you found somebody that you loved and wanted to be with. So, obviously, at that point, the two of you are quite understandable. You're educated about it. You probably already have the consent and the communication is there. However, if this is, it generally comes with heterosexual relationships, obviously. And it's generally the man that usually has had it. I don't know what the statistics are regarding women with anal sex as opposed to men with anal sex. I think men feel that is their duty due to the fact that they wear the penis in the family. Heaven only know. Another thing, so that you can enjoy it, you need to let go of any expectations that you might have. And you need to really, really focus on full penetration. You got to be as present as possible in the moment. You got to enjoy the build up to it, the arousal that is associated with it. You're not probably going to get it on the first time because there is a little pain, and obviously sometimes, you may be just a little too big for her anus. Okay? So remember that. Our behinds are beautiful and should be remembered as beautiful. A lot of men enjoy a woman's butt, especially the little pushing for the cushion back there. A little cushion for the pushing, either way you want to say it. Allowing somebody, guys, when you're thinking you're behind, you sit about going to the bathroom. You're not expecting it to go into the opposite direction. You have to be relaxed about it, but also understand that, the way you're viewing it, you got to change your point of views on your butt and your anus and all of that stuff in order for that. I mean, I'm assured that a lot of people will go and kiss your behind and then they'll go and lick your anus. It's not something everybody is comfortable with. So you got to kind of sort of take your vision of your behind, your posterior, and look at it as, oh, okay. I don't only sit on it. I don't only go to the bathroom. Wow, okay. This is what this is. I kind of like that. So you need to remember, you got to kind of, do that. Nonetheless, obviously relax, which has been the core thing with all of this, the deep breaths, pacing yourself with penetration. Slow and low is the tempo, obviously. You don't want to go too big. You start small. Make sure, because you can probably start with a finger and work your way up from there. Make sure that you are lubed. It might be even a little easier if you put on rubber gloves and then lube the glove that way, because then it might make it that much easier. There are little toys that are out there and which vibrate and everything else. This one by Lilo, which is the Mia 2, which can be used, but they do have a lot of places who carry a starter kit for anal sex. So please, you need to really, really educate, communicate, and consent. One more thing, weed. In this particular instant, maybe your friend, because there are what is known as the Foria's CBD intimacy suppositories that are available. And I know in a good amount of the states now, it is becoming legal. So, but do it legally. Use a silicone-based lube. Much easier because the anus is a lot more tighter than the vagina, and the vagina actually has its own self-lubricant. The anus does not, so this will give you that added help there, and added silkiness and smoothness and ease, shall I say. So, use a water-based, they'll say use silicone lube, use silicone toys. Water-based lube will break, if you're using a toy, silicone-based lube will break down that. So use a water-based lube with the toy. Because there are the pros and the cons of that. Don't use a numbing lube at all, because they are very, very anus. They're very, very anus. Yes, they are. They're they're inherently harmful, and because the anus has it consists of thin, sensitive tissues, not being able to feel that your partner, they can't exactly reach out to tell you what a safe word is or to stop. And you could tear them very badly, and repairing the anus is not fun. Just remember, if you've had hemorrhoids and had surgery, you know how it feels. And you always go shallow first. Finger with the toy or anything like that. Okay? Because you're working your way up. Also, the position that you use makes a big difference. So, use a position that will be very, very helpful, which gives you a good penetration point, which, like with the doggy style, spooning, missionary position, when you are in there and you're going on to town, your partner is going to town on you through your anus, don't make any sudden movements, because one, very painful, and you can get very hurt. Actually, both of you can. So, always, if you're going to start out, they do have butt plugs. So, start your partner out with that, because they can wear that all day long. And they state you should invest in one, a really small one, and work it up. And then, very, very important, don't go from the anus and then kiss your partner, because you can very much transfer very bad bacteria or to the vagina, because very, very important, that bacteria can be very fatal, dangerous, everything else. So if you're going from the anus to the vagina, please change if you're wearing a condom, change that, clean your penis or the strap-on. Very clean, please. And don't overlook analungus. It is a lot of people that are having their anus licked, and it can be very pleasurable to some. But, again, it is actually, because if they enjoy it, let's put it that way, all those little nerves in there is a total turn on. So, prostate, contacted that, touched on that earlier, how it helps, especially with a man. And don't compare it, anal sex, to anything else out there, especially the porn you watch, because they are on there and they're doing this. You're at home with your partner, and this might be new to your partner. So remember that this is, they have everything prepped for them when they're there, okay? And when they do it, they're actually, on porn movies, they're actually prepping for the anal scene, which really includes an unpleasant routine of enemas, very little food, and anti-diarrhea medicines to make sure that is cleared out. So you may be watching this porn and thinking one thing, totally different. So remember that. And it also can be really, really messy. There could be leakage. So remember all of that. Make sure you have a towel close by, or a real messy one that you don't mind getting destroyed. And it is okay to stop at any point. So if you don't love it at first, like I said, try again, but try out slow. Go really, really slow. And with that, that is the end of my show for today. As always, please practice safe sex, if not for your partner, for yourself, and vice versa. As well as I have said throughout, educate, communicate, and consent with anything sexually new, or if you're trying anything, or just do it. It's very good. It not only helps with a better sexual relation, it also helps with a better relationship in general. So I thank you for tuning into the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would also like it if you subscribe to this show and left a 5-star review, a very good review, because it not only helps me, it helps the GSMC Podcast Network to know that this is what their audience wants and is looking for. Please do seek us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, because we are there. Like us, follow us, and please put a comment in. Tell us what you want to hear on the show. Again, thank you. I look forward to talking to you soon and talking sex with you. So, have a very awesome sex night, sex day, depending on where you are. Until next time, with the GSMC Sex Podcast with Andra.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From sex and relationships to health and wellness, life and happiness, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast.